What's up, everybody? This is the Booch, and welcome to episode 49 of the Boochcast reviews, Darkside of the Ring. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to have him back. He used to recap AEW. He's a talented singer-songwriter. Always a pleasure to have him on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Desmond Dagenhart.
I should have waited 20 more episodes.
If we get to season 6, there should be one. Or it'd be 7. Probably season 7. Doing the math correctly. I don't know. Math has never been my strongest subject.
In all fairness, neither has any other subject.
Well, history. I was pretty good at that. I sucked at the rest of them. That's not true. I was good at lunch and recess as well. I excelled at those. But you will notice there is a bit of a change this episode. Besides the scenery and the background we're in and the bright light coming off of Desmond, the Ginger is not with us. The Broke Souls Ginger, Mr. Zach Scott, decided to sit out the Sandman. He was supposed to be on the Sandman with us, but I guess with his schedule getting hectic because he's picking up more shifts now that he's no longer doing NXT, he decided to sit out the Sandman.
All the better.
Yes. Because, of course, as I mentioned, we are here for Enter Sandman, Legacy of a Hardcore Icon. In the 1990s, Extreme Championship Wrestling was meaner, more aggressive, and bloodier than anything mainstream audiences had seen before. As the demands of the company's rabid fan base led to an escalation of in-ring violence, an escalation embodied by the Sandman. He was definitely one of the more violent guys in ECW.
Of course, I mean, he was one of the guys who made ECW ECW. We were talking about this earlier, where ECW, when it was new, when it first was created, was not that violent. It was just Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Yes.
And it was just another wrestling promotion. But it became that violent thing, and that escalation of violence allowed Sandman to do something new, which really defined him as a wrestler.
Yes. And got him to be who he is. And the fans felt involved with the storylines and took them personally because they didn't know if what they were seeing was scripted or not. Like, that's the thing about ECW, because a lot of the times, especially with the hardcore matches and the violence and stuff, New Jack as well. Like, are they working a match or are they actually trying to kill each other? And it was one of those things where the more popular it got, the more they had to top the last show, which is a major reason why you hear a lot of old school guys rip apart ECW or rip apart AEW or have negative things to say about the modern way of wrestling and the flip-flop-fly and the almost die, as MJF would say. That's the problem, because once you do something crazy, you always got to top it, and then it becomes not as believable, or it becomes desensitized to the point where the excitement's gone.
I always say, I love seeing a brutal powerbomb. I love that Gunther used a powerbomb as a finishing move because it's a move that makes sense to knock the wind out of you and end the match. And people were like, well, it's simple. It's something everybody's seen before. Because it works.
And the reason he makes it work is because when he hits it,
it's over.
It's over.
Except for a rare occasion.
Yeah, except for a rare occasion, which is what a finish is supposed to be. When someone kicks out of a finish, it has to be important. The best example I always give is WrestleMania 15.
Stone Cold and The Rock.
Yes, when they were putting the match together, it was just Austin, Rock, and JR at a table. And The Rock was the one who pitched the idea about kicking out of their finishers, because up until WrestleMania 15, nobody kicked out of the Rock Bottom, nobody kicked out of the Stone Cold Stunner. When those finishers hit, the match ended. It was over, it was done, and if they weren't going over, you didn't see the move. That's how much they protected it.
You might see him try to set up the move, but it didn't hit.
Yes, like Austin might go for the stunner, but the guy pushes him out of the ring, or The Rock goes for the Rock Bottom, but the guy elbows him in the face a bunch of times. So The Rock said, how about this? I'd like to kick out of the Stone Cold Stunner, but I'll also let you kick out of the Rock Bottom. And Austin sat there and went, I like it, let's do it. And that's why you saw that when The Rock hit the Rock Bottom, Austin kicked out. And when Austin hit the stunner, Foley went for the pin, Rock kicked out. Nobody saw that coming. And then Austin had to hit a second one, but when he hit the second one, it's done. Like, I'm giving you one kick out. I'm not letting you kick out 19 times. You get one kick out, and then the second time I hit it, we're done. We're going home. So they always had to top the next thing, and it always became out of control. And that was, in a way, it helped ECW because it helped them become different. But it's one of those things where it wasn't sustainable.
Oh, not at all.
That's the problem.
No, it's funny. I always see Supernatural compared to Dragon Ball Z in a sense. And hear me out here. You start out with these guys who are training and fighting, and they get the big bad. They finally beat the big bad. So they're super strong. Then the new big bad comes out. They're like, oh shit, now I gotta train and I get stronger and stronger and stronger to beat this big bad. But then the new big bad is so much stronger than that one. It just escalates and escalates and escalates. At some point, it's gonna cap out. Supernatural was the same way. It's like, season 1, they're going after the demon that killed their mom. Season 3, they finally finish that off. Well, okay, now we're going after the devil. And it's like, okay, well, now we killed the devil. Who can you go after next? The devil's it's like the devil's cousin. No, it's the fucking Metatron. He's an angel. But still, it just escalates and escalates and escalates to bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're sitting there like, at some point, it's gotta end.
And it ended with God, ironically. Because at that point, there was nobody bigger. And God had to be the final boss at that point.
Yeah.
You beat Satan, you beat Michael, you beat the demons, you
Countless pagan gods.
beat fucking, what's the guy? Crowley.
Yeah. As at some point, it's got to end.
Exactly.
And that's what ended up happening with ECW. There was no way for them to keep getting bigger. They couldn't maintain the progress they'd already done. People were getting hurt, and the money wasn't there to keep paying people. WCW had the money, and they bought out their best contracts.
And it also didn't help that ECW, like, a lot of times they were exposing the business, but not even just, like, in the way they were wrestling, but even in the commentary. Like, if you guys remember Heatwave 94 that Gator and I did, there was a moment where Sabu was wrestling Shane Douglas. Sabu goes for a moonsault. There's a table leaned up against the apron. He's supposed to hit Shane Douglas, supposed to go through the table. Not only did they miss the table, he broke his neck in the match. And he's on the floor, but because back then ECW was like a home video kind of thing, for some reason they didn't have enough cameras, so you can't see the angle, because all they had was a hard cam. So you can't see anything else. If they go to the floor, you can't see nothing. If they go out in the crowd, you can't see shit. Nobody thought to bring any cameras. But then at one point, I heard Joey Styles say one phrase that accurately summed up ECW's biggest problem. He goes, I think Sabu is really hurt here. Yeah, way to tell the audience it's fake, jackass. Like, I'm sorry, he wasn't hurt in the other stuff that he did. He's like, I think he's really hurt here. Like,
In all fairness, I will say this. Yeah, if somebody gets hurt when you're fighting with your buddy, you're sparring, somebody can get hurt. But it's like there's a difference between a, oh, that fucking hurt, and a, no, I got no draw. I mean, accidents happen.
Yeah.
It's like it went from being a sporting event to a, oh, son of a bitch, that bitch is really hurt.
yeah, which I would believe if they weren't so extreme. I probably would see the point there. Now, he weighed 247 pounds, Sandman, and he walked to the ring in jeans and a t-shirt. He would have a kendo stick in one hand, beer in the other hand, and a cigarette in his mouth. He would also take the beer can and smash his head with it, so he would be bleeding before he even got to the ring. And it was part of his goal to be different.
And he was the only person Sabu trusted to wrestle drunk.
Yes. He even said, if he's sober, I don't want to wrestle him. That's how crazy it was. Because people give Sandman a lot of shit for being drunk in the ring, but even drunk, he knew what he was doing. They got confirmation, like, no, we never felt at any point when Sandman was drunk that our lives were in danger, or we couldn't trust him with our bodies.
He didn't hurt people. He legitimately, he didn't. He was not New Jack.
Well, New Jack was out for revenge a lot of the time. Like,
my response to that is, I'm sorry, New Jack, but if you have to get revenge against everybody and everybody's doing you wrong, the only common denominator here. But you don't say that to New Jack, because then he has a problem with you.
No. New Jack can say anything he wants. I will not care. It's like,
you're right. You're right.
You're right.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir. Whatever you say, I got you. We're good.
I'm about like, you go to the next room. That motherfucker crazy. What'd you say? Nothing, New Jack. You right. You is right.
And then New Jack, you got the craziest stories. Though a hardcore icon, countless injuries and a lawless locker room led to no shortage of controversies, leaving the Sandman with a brutal and complicated legacy. During his entrance, he would wait about 30 seconds or sometimes a minute and a half before he would start walking through the crowd. When he came in, he didn't want everybody to see him at one time. He wants some people to see him, and then they're like, oh shit, he's over there. It would work its way around the building until everyone discovered where he was. Then he pops up the beer, and he drinks it, spits some of it out, and he would even pour beer down the fans' throats. Particularly ones that were wearing Sandman t-shirts. Sometimes he'd have 5 or 6 beers on the way to the ring. And of course, would smash the beer against his head. It was great for the fans, but not for the guys who had to wrestle him, because they had to wait forever for him to finally get in the ring.
I wonder if it was a lot like how Undertaker was. You know, Undertaker told the story like, you ever see me take a really, really long entrance? Because I'm walking to that ring thinking, there's no way in hell this match is going to be good. He knew he was working with somebody that just could not work. He took extra length in his entrance.
Wait, it's already long enough. Jesus.
The really long entrances, that's why.
And I noticed that a lot lately with long entrances, whether it's Undertaker, Roman Reigns, even Cody to an extent.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing though, long entrances work if the crowd is into you. But if you're not that over, you better be getting to the ring as fast as possible. Like, you can't milk it if no one gives a shit. But, you know, obviously with Sandman, they did. And the pouring the beer down the fans' throats, that's got to be a gamble right there. You know, that's why I think you should, like, I would probably have plans for that just in case. Because God forbid you pour beer down a fan's throat and he's, like, on the wagon.
I mean, let's be real here. You don't go to an ECW show and be like, no, I don't want beer to pour down my throat.
Touché.
Beer's probably the reason you were there in the first place.
Touche. Very true. But yeah, he literally would like stand up there. He holds the kendo stick up. Like, Sandman looked like a badass when he walked to that ring. The cigarette, the beer, he just looked like a guy that's going to beat your ass. And he was like the originator of that kind of look. Because before that, No one was coming out through the crowd. No one was drinking beer on the way to the ring. I know Austin would have a beer celebration afterwards, but not on the way.
Let's be real here. Austin was doing it after Sandman.
Yes.
That was years later.
Exactly. It was just a part of his gimmick. And they said he'd have about 5 or 6 beers. I'm like, I only see 1 can. Where's he hiding the other 5? What I'd like to know.
Well, he'd always enter with 2. I'm sure he had people tossing them to him here. He went.
Probably, yeah. Or maybe he had a couple in the back before he went out, and this is like number 5 or 6. Because I don't recall seeing like a 6-pack attached to him. That's why I asked that. Growing up, his nickname was Hack, which I thought was hilarious. Because that ended up being his name in WCW. He was a wrestling fan as a kid, watching WWWF at 1 p.m. on Saturdays, and being a wrestler was all he ever wanted to be. So he was definitely somebody that loved the business, which I always like to see. Because there's a lot of guys in ECW, I look at them and I go, okay, how many of you actually love the business and how many of you guys are just fucking sick in the head? But Sandman was a genuine wrestling fan, watching all the way back to when, hell, Vince Sr. was probably running, or his dad was running it. I think it was Jay McMahon. He got arrested at a young age for burglarizing a house, and on his first day in jail, he punched a guard in the face during a fight with another inmate who wanted to change the channel while Sandman was watching something. They got in a fight, Sandman went to punch the guy, he ducked, and Sandman accidentally hit the guard in the face and broke his glasses. Luckily, no charges were filed, but he ended up spending 6 months in the hole.
I mean, eventually the alcohol catches up with everybody, man.
I know.
But 6 months.
But here's the thing that I thought was crazy was, you know what kind of balls you have to have in prison to just walk up and change the channel while someone's watching something? Like, prisoners don't play that shit.
And not only that, but let's be real here. He was famous at that point. They knew who he was. They saw the stupid shit he did.
Yeah. And then, of course, he punches the guard and he has to realize, oh, shit, I didn't mean to hit you.
Look, I wasn't aiming at you. I was aiming at him, and then he wasn't there anymore.
He ducked. There's nothing I could do.
You stood behind somebody I was punching at. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly. Like, my intention was to hit him and knock him out. He moved out of the way.
He got lucky on that front. They could have charged him with whatever they wanted to.
But I think when they found it was an accident, they didn't charge him, but they still had to put him in the hole and punish him.
Yeah.
And also, it did remind me of that scene in The Longest Yard when that guy's watching TV and the guard shuts the TV off. He goes, let's go. I'm cutting your TV time short. He goes, I still have 15 minutes with Joy Behar. Because I'm cutting you short. Back to your cell. And he goes, hey, Jerry Head gonna play? It's like, I didn't want to play football. Now I want to play football. I'm in. Let's do this. He fucking took away my Joy Behar. He eventually gets out and then starts partying regularly at Pulsation's nightclub in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. One night he meets a girl and she takes him upstairs into an office and says, take your shirt off. He thinks she wants to fuck, but in reality she's a producer-director for Chippendales and she wants to hire him to be a dancer.
I'm not gonna lie. A chick takes me to a back room and says, take your shirt off. I'm thinking the same fucking thing he is.
I would be a little bit confused because usually girls say take off your pants. They usually don't start with the shirt. Usually they say take off the pants and then you usually take the shirt off from what I've seen. I've never seen a girl say take the shirt off first, but hey, some girls might prefer that in the beginning. But yeah, so he becomes a Chippendales dancer. I cannot picture Sandman being an exotic dancer.
In all fairness, we got Chris Farley.
Oh God, yeah. That's one of the best sketches of all time. He worked as a Chippendales dancer for about a year until he got fired for soliciting. He wasn't making a lot of money at Chippendales, so he got together with 4 other guys and they became gigolos on the side, charging $100 for sex and $42.50 for the room at the Alpine Inn. No time limit. It lasted 6 months until he got caught by the cops. They agreed not to arrest him if he gave it up and revealed the names of the 4 guys who worked with him. He said, I'll quit soliciting, but I'm not going to give out the other guys' names. That's your job to figure out. Chippendales fired him when they found out he was hooking.
You know, I'm just saying. I stand by the fact that it ain't fucking nobody's business who you pay to sleep with. It's one of those deals like, who is it really hurting?
Yeah. If it's consensual and they're giving you the cash willingly.
Yeah. But it says in the Bible, Bible doesn't have a place in law.
Exactly.
He's a Catholic.
And I'm like, no. Look, I am not a male gigolo, but
what was it Thomas Jefferson said? It was religion and politics can only stand in their purest form when kept farthest away from each other.
Exactly.
I probably butchered that quote, but he did say it.
Like I said, I myself have, and I can say this because I'm on the regular guys, it's well documented. I've had my fair share of female escorts, so I'm not judgy in that area. Later, he meets and marries Lori Strzelecki, and I am butchering that last name.
Who's he?
Lori.
Lottie?
No, it's Lori.
Lottie? That is too many consonants in a word. How do you put a Z after an R? Strzelecki.
Strzelecki, yeah, I'm guessing.
Strzelecki.
Yeah. who was known as Miss Peaches in ECW.
He met his wife.
Yes. Yeah, and they have a child together, a daughter named Kelly, and they got married before she was born.
Shotgun wedding.
Exactly, it's a shotgun wedding.
Not really, because he specifically wanted that. It wasn't like the dad said, motherfucker.
Exactly. It was shotgun as in, let's speed up the process before she can't fit into a dress. And at the time, he was working in construction and found out that Jewel Goodhart opened up a wrestling school. Sandman goes check it out, pays $3,500 to get trained, and within 3 months, he's in the ring wrestling.
We're backtracking a little bit. We were starting the story with him in the ring. Then we came back to this where he's a Chippendales dancer, and now we're training to be in the ring, which is where we started.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how documentaries go. They always like, hey, here's basic level stuff about the Sandman. Now we're going into his story and everything. Like, he paid $3,500 to get trained as a wrestler, which
That time was damn good money.
Yeah, and the thing is, what's great about this is that the guy who trained him actually trained him. Because there were guys like, whether it was The Undertaker or Matt MTA, who the guy took their money and then split.
You didn't nail it on paper. You just gave me the paper. You didn't get none of it.
Exactly. He got trained within 3 months. Like, that's how you know somebody's good. Because 3 months, some people train for a year before they get in the ring. Some people go 2 years. It usually depends on
Some people wrestle in the WWE for 20 years and still can't wrestle.
Yeah, there's some homegrown guys that, go to that point. He started out as a surfer gimmick with the name Sandman. So he's called the Sandman, but he's a surfer when he starts out. Which, again, hard for me to imagine Sandman in that gimmick.
I mean, Sting was a surfer too.
Well, he kind of had like the outfit, but he didn't come out to the ring like a surfboard. He's coming out with a damn surfboard. Like, he's a legit surfer dude. His wife managed him during this time. His gear was a wetsuit that smelled awful. He carried his surfboard to the ring, as I mentioned before, and they were wrestling in school gyms and car dealerships, which is where most small indie promotions go. You're renting out middle school, high school gyms. I've been in like rec centers. I went to one indie show where it was outside at a drive-in movie theater.
I went to one that was outside of a restaurant, like a little cafe.
Oh, yeah. That the one where Dots met that main event guy?
Yeah. If you haven't yet, look up Nauticism. He's on Instagram. He's awesome. Stand up for the indie wrestlers.
Yes, absolutely. He later meets Todd Gordon, who created Eastern Championship Wrestling, which was the original name before it became Extreme Championship Wrestling, as Desmond mentioned earlier. So during this time, it's Eastern, and Todd Gordon is the owner. Most ECW fans remember Todd is God. And Sandman is one of the first people he signs. So that's why when they say Sandman is an ECW original, they're not fucking around. He's legit an ECW original. It's not like, he was an icon in the company and that's why. No. He's one of literally the first guys that Todd Gordon signs to a contract.
Before it was Extreme.
Yes. Now, Paul Heyman was known for having a great mind for the business. Still does. He sees Sandman with...
not the accounting part of the business.
Yeah, that was it. His mind was in the wrestling and the storytelling, but when it came to finances and accounting, not very good. He sees Sandman with the surfboard, and the first thing he says is, that thing's getting broken over your head tonight. The next night, he forgot his wrestling boots, and Paul said, I don't give a fuck. At that moment, Sandman was inspired to change his entire gimmick and just wear regular clothes to the ring. I can honestly say it's the first time in my life I've ever heard a promoter say, I don't give a fuck that you don't have your gear. I've seen promoters that will rip your throat out if you forgot your boots or your gear or whatever.
Well, it's one of those, at that point, Heyman's like, you know what? Do you really need them? Let's be real here. Do you need the bullshit? Or can you get in the ring and do your job? And very few people can pull that off.
Yes. There are some people that walk to the ring in regular clothes, and it's like, you got to be fucking kidding me. For example, I know Gator frowns upon that. He wants to see gear, boots, tights. He's very big on that. And I've always said, to me, it depends on the gimmick. Mm-hmm. Like, Sandman can pull that shit off. Other people, I'd be like, no, you got to put gear on. I don't want to see you in regular clothes. But Sandman, again, was able to get away with it. There are people who become exceptions to every rule, and Sandman was always one of them. And upon Paul Heyman's arrival, Sandman drops his surfer look, changing with the times to portray one of the most famous and influential tough guys in the history of the company. So this is right around the time when Todd Gordon is getting phased out as the owner, and Paul Heyman is coming in and being the owner. Because Paul Heyman got a lot of connections, and from what New Jack said, they told him to deal with him and not Todd. Like, New Jack claims Paul Heyman stole the company from Todd Gordon. He was basically being himself, a guy that hangs out at the bar, loses a game of pool, and wants to get in a fight with you. Paul let the wrestlers figure their gimmicks out through trial and error. So again, this is Paul Heyman basically saying, look, you guys figure out what your gimmicks are instead of giving you the gimmick, which obviously, complete 180 from Vince McMahon, but Paul does it better than TK, obviously, in that regard.
Yeah, well, Paul has what they call charisma.
Yes.
Tony Khan has what they call a fanboy heart.
Yes.
And look, I don't blame him. If I had the money, I'd do the same shit. But I also have what they call charisma.
If you got it, it works, you know? And
if you got it, flaunt it, my man.
that's the thing. And that's why Paul was able to convince people to do things you wouldn't expect him to do. Like, Paul Heyman was literally able to take all these deranged psychopaths, because most of the ECW locker room was deranged psychopaths, and he was able to keep them in line.
They all respected him.
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to, is that they respected him. They knew that he was going to take care of the stories. He was going to let them do what they did best, and they were going to put on a hell of a show.
Yeah.
And that's why ECW was so great. Now, if they all needed to learn to tone it down a little bit and back it off so that they didn't overkill themselves, and Paul needed to learn how to make the money work a little bit better to pay his people a little bit better, but you know what it is.
Exactly. He was a relatable character because he had the Brawler South Philly vibe. He would say, life's a bitch and then you marry one. Part of being a good worker is knowing how to get your character over and how to keep the character over. He gets inspired to come through the crowd when he and Missy walked through the front door of the strip club. He basically walked through that door and realized, like, holy shit, this could work. Because he saw the crowd, he's walking through here, and he goes, holy shit, this could work. And again, he knew how to get his character over and keep it over. And that's very much a key thing, is knowing how to get over and stay over, but do it in a way that my character would get over. Don't copy what the other guy did to get over. How would this guy get over? Like, what does the Sandman have to do to get over? What does the Undertaker have to do to get over? And what Undertaker has to do to get over is going to be different from what the Sandman has to do to get over, which will be different from what Austin has to do to get over, which is different from how The Rock has to get over. Like, everybody has their own gimmicks, but they have to get over in a different way. And you got to find the way that works for you, but also will draw money. And Sandman was able to figure that out and draw money. The Singapore cane was inspired by the Michael Fay incident, where he was hit with a bamboo cane for spray painting a car in Singapore. Paul Heyman suggested it and ripped off a tree branch, took the tiny branches and leaves off and said, wrap some tape around the bottom and this will be your Singapore cane. Go to the ring and cut a promo with it. So that's where the Singapore cane idea came from, was when they saw the guy get caned because Singapore does stuff like that. Was that the place where Gabriel was talking about?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, when he was like, I kill you, I choke you.
I stand over you and piss while doing Gundam style.
Yes, do not smuggle drugs into our country. So they literally did that. A kid spray painted a car and they caned him. And at the time, that was big on the news. Because people were like, I can't believe they did that. It's like, if you live in America, I've seen parents use switches and crazy shit to hit their kids. So the fact he got caned didn't shock me. On May 14th in the ECW Arena, they have their first ever Singapore caning match where the loser of the fall will receive 6 whacks with a cane. The match pitted the Sandman with Woman in his corner, who was managing him at this point, against Tommy Cairo, who was being managed by Peaches. Now, for all that don't know, Woman is Nancy Benoit, because she was a valet in WCW and ECW before,
She had to Benoit met her.
Yes, that's where Chris met her. She got in the business through Kevin Sullivan. He was married to her. Then later she went to Chris. And, all of that. And Peaches, by this point, her and Sandman, for shoots, are now estranged. They're kind of separated. I don't know if they're fully divorced yet. But she ends up aligning with Tommy Cairo. He then had another Singapore caning match with Tommy Dreamer, where Tommy took 10...
May I have another?
Yes, where he took 10 lashes with the cane after Sandman went over. Sandman believes that hardcore isn't violence just to do violence. The hardcore is violence for a reason. Wrestling is entertainment, and you don't have to do a wrist lock, a waist lock, or a moonsault to get over. It doesn't have to be wrestling. Which, to an extent, I can agree with that. Again, it depends on what you do with the violence. Like people always said, what's the difference between a hardcore match and a death match? A hardcore match has psychology and storytelling. A death match does not. That's the fundamental difference.
A death match is how much gore can we put in this match before somebody has to pin or die.
Exactly. Hardcore is, this guy's going to bleed, but he's going to bleed here, not here. There's a timing and a place for it to make it work. He made sure when he was home to spend as much time with his kids as possible because he knew eventually he'd be back on the road. So this is another scenario of, not a great husband, but still a great father, which is an ongoing theme we notice a lot with some of the wrestlers.
Yeah.
They're better dads than they are husbands.
Well, in all fairness, they talked about how he was also getting to the point where he was bad with the kids. When he started going to WCW, it started becoming issues with the steroids. He was becoming mean. He was becoming abusive. Most of it was towards the wife, but it wasn't just the wife. And I'm watching this episode thinking, well, finally, something a little dark, because the rest of this is very fucking tame. And this part lasted all like 10 seconds, and it goes right back to, I'm better now, I'm not that piece of shit no more. How is this Dark Side of the Ring, man?
Keep in mind, he has not seen the earthquake episode.
Doesn't matter. Just because that episode was just as fucking stupid. Look, I love Sandman. I do. And that's why I agreed to do this episode with Vinny. Because I like Sandman. And I'm like, cool, I want to see what's dark about his. Nothing. See, don't get me wrong. Yeah, he fucked up. For a period of time, he fucked up. And now he's living with it and trying to be a better person. I think that's most of us. In one way or another, that is most of us.
Exactly. And especially here, because Sandman's schedule becomes even more punishing as ECW explodes in popularity by constantly pushing their own limits. The show was aimed at adults, and so the storylines were adult. It was the furthest thing from pro wrestling, but Paul guided the roster to where the ECW energy needed to be. So he was able to work around, guide the energy, figure things out. And again, this is very much an adult show. You definitely don't want your kids watching this.
Yeah. I took my kid to a little indie show outside of a cafe. I did not take him to death wrestling backyard bullshit.
Exactly.
And that's coming from somebody who bought a backyard wrestling video game at one point.
Oh, I bought that too. I had that game too. I became a fan of Insane Clown Posse through that. Woman was a great manager for Sandman because she had a mind for the business and helped guide his character in a positive way. So Woman was very much a mentor to Sandman. Because, again, she knew her shit. She's actually regarded as one of the greatest female valet managers of all time. And that's why, despite everything that went down with her, Chris, and Daniel, they still believe she should go into the Hall of Fame for her accomplishments. And that's the only thing that sucks, is that she might not get in because of the controversy that it would create. And I feel like I 100% don't want Chris in, but at least put in Woman.
I don't know how much we could argue that she deserves it, though. Realistically. Obviously, the fame is going to be there based on what happened, but she's not hugely famous for the wrestling. Let's be real here. She's hugely famous for the tragedy.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't necessarily think she deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not. That's not what I want. But
no, I hear you.
I feel like that's where the line needs to be. Who's in the Hall of Fame should be what they did for the sport.
Yeah.
Sport. I
yes.
know. To those be like, motherfucker. I know. I know.
It's sports entertainment.
We are enjoying it.
Exactly. Paul Heyman tells Sandman he was talking to Macaulay Culkin and wants to bring him in as Sandman's son for a storyline.
Motherfucker, I got a son.
Exactly. Sandman says he has Macaulay Culkin sitting in his van, and Paul says, great, we'll use Tyler. Todd Gordon said Paul was lying and had no connection to Culkin at all, which Paul was notorious for lying. He was very much a shady person back then. We all love him as the wise man of the tribal chief, but everybody has a negative past. The Sandman's wife, Lori, has long been an ECW fixture as part of her husband's storylines, and now takes center stage in his latest feud with Raven. But bringing his son Tyler into the mix is something the wrestling world hasn't seen and wouldn't expect. So this is the first time you're seeing now the kid is being brought in. Because back then, they rarely brought sons at all into wrestling. I think WCW didn't do it until a year or so later when Hogan was in the NWO, heel Hulk Hogan against the babyface Roddy Piper, and Piper had his son with him.
Yeah.
While Hogan was talking trash. So they slowly brought that in. But this is like the first time it's like being really incorporated into a storyline. Because the wife thing's been done before.
Yeah.
But they never had children in the ring. So now it's kind of crazy, especially with ECW as extreme as it is. I'm sitting here thinking, Sandman must really trust this locker room if he's going to let his actual, legit, for-a-shoot son come out to the ring.
And at this point, let's be real here. He'd been working with Raven long enough that this was very doable.
Yeah. The storyline worked because it was, as Desmond said, relatable to anyone going through a divorce that saw the kid being used as a prop to gain concessions. So right away, any guy out there divorced, you are 100% behind Sandman right now because you know what it's like to go through that shit, to have your kid weaponized against you. This happens a lot in divorces.
Oh, yeah. And I will say this. I don't care if you're the woman or the man or the in-between these days. You don't use a kid against somebody else. All you're doing is hurting the kid.
Yeah.
Period. Seriously, what the fuck is wrong with you people?
Exactly. Look, if you guys can't talk or can't get along, that's one thing, but you don't put the kid in the middle. Every kid deserves to know their mom and their dad and spend time with them. And that's always been my thing. Like, that's how I feel about it. Look, I remember when I had relatives that were going through a divorce, and my dad was talking to one of them. I'm saying relatives, I don't want to single anybody out. He looked this man dead in the eye and said, look, if you guys want to get divorced, that's your business. But make sure both of you are spending time with that kid and taking care of him. And they did. They were able to co-parent somehow. But he made it very clear, y'all better not weaponize this kid against each other, or I'll kick both your asses.
And for those of you like, oh, it's easy for you to say, I'm living with the mom of my kid and her husband at the moment.
Yeah. So it's doable, ladies and gentlemen.
And no, it's not some weird polythrouple thing.
No. The mom and the boyfriend are the only ones getting together on this one. He's not participating.
I am currently single and available.
Yes.
Call me.
Tyler was instructed to never smile or react to anything that happened in the ring. He had to have a cold, blank stare the entire time he was out in front of the crowd.
And apparently the kid was fucking phenomenal.
Oh my God. This kid took direction so well. And there was a moment. I'm just going to say this real quick before I say this quote, because Des and I were talking about this a little bit off camera. One thing ECW got a bad reputation for, and up until I saw this documentary, I 100% believe this, that ECW was never known for storylines and psychology. Like, storytelling was never something people looked at ECW. They're known for the matches and the hardcore and the violence, and that's what I thought it was for a long time. Because I was only watching pay-per-views. I didn't watch the week-to-week TV. I'm thinking this is all hardcore, violent bullshit that means nothing, and it's goddamn ridiculous. Then I saw what I'm about to tell you right now, and I was like, holy shit. Sandman and Raven's probably the best rivalry ECW ever had. Because Tyler gets on the mic and he says, Daddy, you're a drunk. Now I worship Raven. The crowd is stunned. Keep in mind, ECW crowds, not known for being quiet. They don't shut up. And they yell expletives and everything. The crowd is silent. The Sandman is crying and in tears. I was in tears just watching I didn't even see the storyline. I'm watching the docu-series, the Darkside of the Ring video, and I'm in tears. I had to pause it. I was like, holy shit.
And I will say this. I told Vinny, like, look, I knew this. It's Paul Heyman, man. The story's going to be there. ECW got a bad rep because the competition ran him into the ground. It's really what it came down to. Yes, they definitely took things a little too far, and they fucked themselves up, and it was not sustainable. I will give it that. But nobody who was actually a fan of ECW ever said that we're just watching blood and gore. No, there were stories. People were invested. And that's why Tommy Dreamer was such a big star. That's why Sandman was such a big star. Raven, Sabu, these guys were all known for amazing works of art, even though they filled it with also blood and gore.
Yeah. I was blown away at that and how Sandman sold that. Like, because that is gotta be crushing. Nothing is more crushing than your son calling out your biggest flaw and saying, I have another hero and an idol and it's not you. That's gotta crush. Holy shit. That's gotta be brutal. So I'm looking at this like, holy crap. This is amazing. Like, Tyler was perfect in his role and never missed a cue. They had to travel separately and meet secretly at a gas station with no ECW fans around to get in the car and drive home together. Again, this example of you kept the kayfabe.
Yeah, it's not doable today.
No.
Let's be real. Internet ruined that.
Exactly.
They'd meet fucking 50 miles away and someone with their phone out and be like, motherfucker.
Yeah. They even said they were at the gas station. They looked around to make sure there were no ECW t-shirts. And if they saw them, they would like duck low and not do anything. And then they had to like meet in secret to go drive home. But they never left the building together. You never saw them out to dinner. And again, people think that it's ridiculous all you want. It was about respecting the fans that went to the show and took the time to get emotionally invested. And I may have told the story before, but I'll tell it again because it bears repeating. This is when I first learned how serious the kayfabe was. I was working at an indie show one night doing commentary, and we're all out of the restaurant. I remember the main event was Tyson Dean, who was the heel, against Simon Sermon, who was the babyface. Place is sold out, great match. We're all going to this diner afterwards. Tyson said he's going to meet us there. So Simon goes, the promoter goes, me and the commentators were all sitting at a table. All of a sudden, we get there. About 2 minutes in, a bunch of fans see us, get up, and run to Simon to get pictures and an autograph. I go outside to have a cigarette. I see the promoter run past me, get on his phone, called Tyson and said, don't come to the restaurant. There's fans from the show. We'll all hang out another time. You just need to go home. And apparently on the phone, he's like, nah, I get it. I'll go spend time with the wife and kids. And he went home. So I sat down with the commentators. I didn't say anything to the promoter. And I went, yeah, I just heard him say that. What was that all about? He goes, fans can't be seen together. Like with Ric Flair and Dusty. Or actually, now I remember we probably talked about this during the Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah.
It's now popping in my head. They did that to respect the audience. That's really what it was about. They saw it as disrespect if you're in a high-profile match and you show up to the building in the same car.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
The Sandman and Raven storyline proves to be a massive success for the company, but their attempt to take it to the next level could end up bringing ECW down. So this is where, as we mentioned before, they pushed the envelope a little farther. Now, Raven was seen as a martyr for society's dysfunction, and he wants everyone to feel his pain. That's basically Raven's gimmick. So he came up with the idea of tying Sandman to a cross so he could feel his pain. Now, Sandman used to work as a roofer. He was a concrete dude and a carpenter. So he decides to build the cross. because he has experience in that area. So rather than hire somebody to build, he's like, I've been in construction for so many years, man. I'll build this thing. So they build the cross. They also get a barbed wire crown to be the crown of thorns. For y'all that don't know, when you see that thorns on Jesus' head, when you see pictures of him on the cross and everything, it was a crown of thorns they put on his head, specifically to make his head bleed while he was going through the Stations of the Cross. Raven, along with Stevie Richards, the Blue Meanie, and Nova, who most of us know as, if you remember, the Simon Dean gimmick infomercial guy from the Ruthless Aggression era.
Yeah.
He would come out with like the protein drinks and shit.
I had to think about it, but yeah, I remember him.
That was him.
Okay.
He was Nova before he got signed to WWE. So they throw Sandman onto the floor and they tie him to the cross and they hoist it up and the crowd looks on in shock. So when the show's going off the air, Sandman is tied to a cross. They hoist it up on the apron to show him tied to the cross. And all the fans are like, what the fuck? Now, as the Sandman and Raven steal the ECW spotlight, both are looking to shock the audience, but neither man is prepared for the backstage fallout. They get to the back and they're all celebrating how great the segment went, and Paul said there's massive heat on this because Kurt Angle happened to be in the building that night because it was in Pittsburgh and he had just recently won the gold medal in the Olympics. So he's not Kurt Angle, the pro wrestler, yet. This is around the time when Kurt just won the gold medal for representing America. This is when he won the gold medal with the broken freaking neck. And he's at an ECW event because it's big in Pennsylvania and he's from Pittsburgh. So I'm going to ECW, not knowing what ECW really was. So Kurt Angle's in the audience, and it happened to be at this show. So he had made an appearance in the ring. He had talked to the Philadelphia crowd to tell them how honored he was to serve his country and how happy he was that he's here and get to bring the gold home to America, and everybody's cheering. So he wasn't in the wrestling business yet, so he wasn't smart enough to the entertainment aspect. And he kind of looked down his nose at it like most amateur wrestlers do, which is true. A lot of amateur wrestlers, and I learned this when I wrestled in high school, they despise professional wrestling, most of them. That's why, and I got a lot of heat for this because people were ignorant and I tried to explain it to them. Kurt Angle was the one that made it cool for amateur wrestlers to get into the business. And apparently, some people misunderstood what I was saying and thought that I was saying Kurt Angle was the first amateur wrestler to get into the business. I never said that. I am aware that other wrestlers, like the Steiner brothers and the Iron Sheik and Eddie Guerrero, they all wrestled in high school or college or whatever before they got in the business. I knew that, but I meant it was still frowned upon to do so by the Amateur Wrestling Society. But once Kurt Angle got in it and he became successful, it made other people feel comfortable about, okay, this doesn't make a mockery of wrestling. Because when they would tell people I'm a wrestler, they would think, oh, you're in WWE. It's like, no, I do actual pro wrestling. This is real wrestling that we do. And it was seen as an insult. So that's why Kurt Angle for a long time looked down on it until once he got in the business, he understood it, became an entertainer and all that. Now, Kurt said, this was a message from Kurt when he did an interview. Somebody did the audio and said, you have to understand, I'm a Christian kid from Pittsburgh. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is a crucifixion. I was really upset and went to Paul Heyman and said, hey, you can't air this show with me on it. If you do, you're going to hear from my attorney. And Paul said, well, I didn't even know it was going to happen. He is the promoter. It's the main event. He's full of shit. That was my last straw.
Truth is, Paulie probably didn't know. At that point, he's trusting his guys to do their thing.
I believe that. And I think that's probably why Kurt later got over it, because he's probably like, yeah, you probably didn't know.
There's a certain point where Vince didn't know what DX was going to do from week to week.
No.
We can't say beep, 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 or beep. Definitely can't say beep, beep.
Yeah. We can, however, use the words. Triple H, I just say the network laughed at that. They loved it.
It's basically what I did to your format on the...
Yeah. I gave him a format. He ripped it apart. But I didn't get mad because he still followed it. He did exactly what I told him to do, but ripped it apart like, he thinks I don't know this? I'm like, hey, I was just anal and trying to double check everything. I'm a perfectionist. It's a blessing and a curse.
The password is dumbfuck37.
Yeah, he gave a fake password, thank God. When he said the password is, I'm like, he is not about to read the password. I fucking freaked out. And then it went, oh, okay, I'm good.
Like, I'm about to change everything.
Oh, Jesus. Do not make me change this password. Paul wanted Kurt Angle to come work with ECW, so he was kissing his ass. He got Raven to go out and apologize for the segment, but Sandman said, fuck all of you dudes. I ain't apologizing. That's fucking bullshit. So Raven apologized, but Sandman's like, nope, I ain't saying shit.
Yeah, I get it. It's part of the fucking show. It's not called Your Mama's Championship Wrestling.
Exactly.
Extreme. It's in the name.
Exactly. What would you think was going to happen? Despite the controversy surrounding the crucifixion angle, the scandal doesn't slow the Sandman's momentum. He becomes the tag team champions with Too Cold Scorpio. Meanwhile, Sandman is the world champion and Scorpio is the TV champion.
We don't need no fucking faction. It's just the two of us.
Exactly. And here's another thing. Sandman was the ECW champion 5 times in his career.
5 times. 5 times. 5 times. 5 times. 5 times. ECW champ. Wait. Tell me he didn't just say that.
Well, technically, Booker, you're at 6, so I think Sandman can use it now. Despite the accolades and championships, life on the road and ECW's hard-hitting style are taking a toll on the Sandman's body. He's broken a total of 27 bones in his career. His neck, his clavicle 3 times, he needs a hip replacement and 2 shoulder surgeries. He says a superplex off the top rope is like a 30-mile-an-hour car crash. He would take at least 10 a day. He injured his leg. They shaved his meniscus. And he went back to the ECW arena and came out on crutches. He once got a concussion and couldn't remember anything about the match or night. So he was taking quite a bit of damage in the ring. And it's funny because he says superplex is like a 30-mile-an-hour car crash. Although I've seen some people that are able to do it where if you cradle the head correctly, you can protect the guy.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember Buff was in an indie show with this guy. His name's Neil Koloff. And they wrestled. And he said he wanted to do a superplex. And Buff's like, I ain't fucking going up there. Are you crazy? And he's like, no. I got you, man. Just trust me. He convinced Buff to trust him. He took that one superplex. He goes, bro, I'll do that every time we wrestle now. He said he felt like he landed on a pillow.
All about taking the move right, man. You do it right. It's supposed to be safe, y'all. It's supposed to
Exactly. You're going to get hurt, but as long as you're safe while you do it, it's fine. You can't promise the person won't get hurt. You just got to make sure they don't get injured. That's the key. For most of his career, he wouldn't take pills, but eventually the pain was too much for him not to. It later led to Xanax to sleep and cocaine to wake up. As the pain increased from the barbed wire chairs, light bulbs, and tacks, the Percocet and Somas increased. So, of course, the dreaded S word, the Somas. Again, that becomes the pattern with every wrestler. Almost every wrestler that has a pill addiction has been on Somas. And it's because they work too good. Everybody in ECW partied, including Todd Gordon, so no one got fired for being high or drunk. That's the thing. That's the one place where you never got fired for being high or drunk. Because everybody was doing it.
Yeah, it's like when I was working at the Zaxby's and my buddy brought in the jar of the moonshine and we had 2 managers on duty. One had to stay sober because he could work with the people up front and then all the cooks were drunk. I was one of the cooks.
But did you still get the orders right?
Damn right.
Okay, there you go.
I ain't fucking up.
Hey, as long as it didn't fuck up your job, it's fine. It's like, drink whatever you want, man. That's how I look at it. They would talk to 3 doctors in Philly that would each give them 90 Oxycontin. This would happen once a month on a Friday. So they had a total of 270 Oxycontins, 300 Percocets, and 300 Somas, and they would divide it up amongst the boys. So it's not like it's one person taking all these. Like, hey, here's your shit, here's your shit, here's your shit. So that's what they would do. Because back then, you could mess with doctors and get pills. Today, no. They are micromanaging that shit today. It's almost impossible to do today. You got to be like mega, ultra, hyper famous to even pull that off. Back then, you could just be a wrestler. And they would do it for an autograph or a picture. Like, hey, sign this autograph for my kid. Here's 50 Somas. Have a nice day. And they'll do that shit. Like, hey, we'll sign autograph, take pictures all night. Sandman was so out of control, he once stole mushrooms from RVD's locker. Sandman and Raven shoot up an 80 in a gas station bathroom, and Sandman starts ODing in the car. So now, this is where the drug use is getting out of control. The Sandman's reckless nature and persistent drug use have landed him on the brink of death. Raven and Bill Alfonso stop the car, call an ambulance, and they give Sandman an adrenaline shot. They take him to the hospital. He wakes up at 4 a.m., took all the monitors off, grabbed his stuff, went to the hotel, slept, woke up the next day, and drove to the next town. And when he got there, shot up an Oxycontin 80 and loved it. That was the last time he did it because he knew if he kept doing it, it would kill him. His wife eventually found out about it when a bill came from the hospital.
You know, you have that bill sent to the boss man, and that's not an issue.
He thinks, oh, I'll get away with it. Then the mail comes in, and you're not there to pick up the mail because you're on the road, Sandman. As the Sandman struggles with his personal issues, ECW experiences a decline as its top stars leave for bigger, more mainstream promotions. Sandman also got an offer to go to WCW and make 5 times as much money. He goes there under the name Hack. Most of the guys there were huge, muscular guys. Sandman was a tall kid but not muscular, so he decides to start taking steroids. So it's a WCW that he's now on the roids because he's trying to compete with everybody that's there.
Right.
Almost everybody else in the company's taking him because he wants to get big. He got the best steroids from Germany, which got you jacked but also affected your personality. He became an abusive, harmful individual. He became physically abusive towards Lori, pulling her hair, putting a pillow over her face. He was mentally abusive as well. They would argue and he dumped beer over her head. So this is where the asshole version of Sandman's starting to come out.
And like I said, it took me this far into the episode to get like, oh, that's where it gets dark. Yeah. Everything else was just like, oh, we did some bad business. It got crazy. We bled a little bit. Oh my God. And now it's like, oh, you did some roids and beat up some people? You smacked on your wife? Well, that's most of wrestlers.
Yeah.
Stone Cold did that.
Yeah. But they don't talk about it. That article got buried deep 6 feet under. He bought $10,000 worth of steroids, and his wife dumped it all out on the front lawn. He said, do you realize you just threw away $10,000 worth of shit? She said, I don't give a fuck. It's turning you into a dick.
I mean, she wasn't wrong, though.
No. Eventually, Lori left him and took the kids. Sandman today takes full responsibility for his behavior, so he is holding himself accountable.
You're like, dude, I fucked up.
This is on me. This one's on me. My bad. In 2001, ECW closes its doors, and 2 years later, its assets are sold to Vince McMahon's WWE, giving the Sandman one last shot in the spotlight as the brand is relaunched. His character was watered down, so he didn't have the cigarette and beer as part of his gimmick anymore, but he still had the Singapore cane and came out through the crowd. And many fans and wrestlers hated this portion of ECW.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's because it wasn't ECW.
Yeah.
It wasn't. When they tried to bring out ECW with new wrestlers, you got Punk and all that shit going on. It wasn't ECW. Just because you slap a label on it doesn't mean it's the same shit.
Yeah.
Coke ain't Coke no more. They took the Coke out of it.
Exactly. That's true. And it didn't have the same value, although I remember Bruce Pritchard on his podcast, something else to wrestle with on the WWE Network or Peacock now. Him and Conrad Thompson got in a big fight over ECW.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, like, they didn't like the new changes that you guys made when you revived ECW. And Bruce got pissed off and said, what new changes? Like getting checks that actually cleared?
Well, you know, cough.
I'm just saying, like, he said, look, at least when we gave you guys a check, you never had to worry about whether or not it was going to bounce. They all cleared every time. So Bruce is kind of like, it kind of has a point. Like, okay. It's like, look, this may suck. It's not what we used to be, but at least when we got paid, we got paid. You know, we'd have to track down Paul Heyman. I don't have to threaten nobody. I don't have to kick open his door. I don't have to grab him by the throat and say, look, you fat fuck, give me the rest of my money. Like, Bruce is like, look, at least when we paid you, your check's cleared. Okay, so we weren't extreme and violent anymore. It was the early 2000s, the PG era.
And we're just saying that era gone now.
Yes.
It gone.
Yeah. Well, when they go to Netflix, it'll officially be gone.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least on Raw. SmackDown and NXT are still going to have to follow suit.
You know.
SmackDown's on USA. I think Fox is more strict than USA, so SmackDown get a little bit more breathing room. But I think Raw on Netflix is where they're going to really be.
Oh, yeah.
That's where it's really going to go. It's not going to go all the way completely. Like I said, SmackDown is still going to have to follow certain rules on the USA Network, but USA is a little more lenient than Fox. Sandman's time in the WWE is brief and unremarkable, and though his wrestling career is largely over, his troubles with addiction continue. He gets arrested for getting into a fight with someone who threw a bottle at him and hit him in the head.
He gets arrested because somebody hit him with a bottle, is what I heard there.
Yeah.
Look, how you react when somebody hits you with a bottle is on them.
Yeah. Well, it says here, Sandman chases the guy into the kitchen, breaks a bunch of shit in the kitchen, and the SWAT team came and took him away.
He started it.
Exactly. Which didn't work in 8th grade, not going to work on the police department. He goes to court, and the bail is set at $10,000. His kids run to multiple ATMs to get the money and manage to bail him out at 4 a.m.
It specifies the reason he had to go to multiple ATMs is because the bank can say, yeah, you can withdraw that much money, but no ATM is going to let you take out that much money. That's a machine limit. That's not a bank limit.
Exactly. So they had to go find multiple ATMs to get him out. And they said his wife dog cusses him as they get in the car. Or one of his kids, I think, dog cussed him. I think his daughter or something.
Yeah, we should never have to do that shit.
Yeah. Don't ever make us fucking do this again. What the fuck is wrong with you? You have kids. Fucking behave.
I'll be real with you. I would have just sat in the jail. I wouldn't have made the phone call. I might have made a phone call. I'm not coming home. I'm in jail. No, you're not bailing me out. I'm a dumbass. I'll be out soon.
Yeah. They're only going to keep me X amount of time. His family acknowledged that despite the mistakes he's made, he is a success in the wrestling business and worked hard to get there. He can move forward and put the past behind him. So apparently, it's Sandman who's still beating himself up for his past. Like, his kids have forgiven him. I think Lori has too. So it's one of those things where he's been forgiven by others, but he can't forgive himself yet.
I stand by what I said. This was too damn tame for a Dark Side of the Ring episode.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, I've reviewed several episodes like this with you, and this is the first one that I've been like, I don't get me wrong, it's cool to know more about Sandman.
Yeah.
I just feel like this was not the right forum for it.
Yeah, I admit it wasn't as dark as like other episodes we've done in the past, but I will say that's what I loved about it was I got to learn more about the Sandman, and I have a new level of respect for the Sandman that I didn't have before. I didn't hate the Sandman. I just kind of thought he was there. I didn't realize he was there.
Yeah,
like the guy, like the, for lack of a better term, head of the table of ECW. Like, this dude was their top guy. 5-time champion, carried the company, was a legit badass, knew how to work, trained, took it seriously, just found a gimmick that worked for him. Like, I have a whole new outlook on the Sandman just from watching this as a wrestler. Okay, so he had a lot of shit in his personal life. Again, what wrestler hasn't gone through 90% of this shit already? He had drugs, domestic violence, at least one divorce. Kids didn't talk to him, now they do. That's the theme of almost all of these. So I get all that. As a wrestler, though, I learned more. Usually with these, you learn about their personal life. I learned more about Sandman the wrestler than I did about the person.
Like I said, I really enjoyed learning about Sandman, seeing more things about him, but I said, this just did not feel like the forum for me. Like, this Dark Side of the Ring should be more like Owen Hart's tragedy.
Yeah. Or, dare I say, when we did Grizzly Smith.
Right. It's like, that is the fucking dark side. That's the back.
I still say to this day that's the darkest episode.
Oh yeah, that's.
I don't think none of them have been darker than that.
No, that was when a show that is supposed to show you the most graphic shit has one episode that has a content warning on it. That episode's fucked up.
Yeah, there's been a few that had it after that, but that was the first one to have a graphic warning.
Yeah,
that's still the most graphic to this day, but. That, ladies and gentlemen, will wrap up this episode of Boochcast Reviews Darkside of the Ring. Des, even though this was tame, I still appreciate you taking the time to come on here, man, and talk about this. I think this is the first time we've ever actually talked about ECW. We're usually talking WWE or AEW. This is the first time we've done ECW.
Well, I mean, ECW really wasn't a thing when we became friends.
That's true. WCW was out of business, too.
Yeah, I'd say ECW has been out of business for 23 years.
Yes.
We've been friends for like 12?
Make sure you guys tune in next week. We'll have a good show. I am going to be joined by Derek Showtime. Not to be confused with Derek Shapiro, because I hear when I say Derek, people get triggered. It's not Derek Shapiro. He doesn't do Dark Side of the Ring. Unless they do an episode on the New Day, he ain't coming.
It's not Ben Shapiro. He's out there rapping with Tom McDonald.
Exactly. God, I love that song. But anyway,
I don't know that I've ever actually heard this song.
You should. Regardless of how you feel about Ben, he has bars, man. It's pretty good.
By that you mean Tom McDonald wrote bars and he...
Some people are saying he did. Tom claims he didn't. But either way, I will say next week, Derek Showtime. He's the guy, if you don't remember, last year for night 1 of WrestleMania 39 and NXT Stand and Deliver 2023, he was a guest on the show. When we did night 1 of WrestleMania, we had that guy call. It was 39, not this year, but the year before. Remember we had somebody call in for night 1?
Sure.
Okay, well, he joined us for night 1. So Derek Showtime, if you remember him, he'll be joining next week. And we're going to be discussing Black Saturday. The Rise of Vince McMahon next week here on the Boochcast. So make sure you guys follow us on all of our podcast platforms. The link is down in the description box below. Follow us on our social media platforms. The link is down in the description box below. You can also support the Boochcast. Go to podcasters.spotify.com/pod/shows/the Boochcast/support. That link will be down in the description box below. And of course, as always, hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to be notified so you never miss another episode of Boochcast Reviews Dark Side of the Ring, as well as other additional Boochcast YouTube content. We'll talk to you guys next time. Until then, pizza baby!